Good morning. How are you today? Well, it's brusque, it's gray, and I'm wearing my chapeau to protect me from the cold. uh, well, what's going on? The two big stories continue to persist. Uh, Number one is what are we doing about the pandemic? And number two is what are we doing about Manchin reneging? Let's start with our favorite, how we protect ourselves from an ever-expanding infection called Omicron, a variant of the original coronavirus. And some are hoping that it's nothing more than a super flu, although there are reports of people dying. And it's reproducing, as we know, at the rate of 2.5 times every 2 days. And the numbers are predicted to be up in the million. So, while this is going on, let's go to the courthouse. The Sixth Circuit reinstated a ban on large businesses, that is over 100 employees, that they had to be vaccinated or be tested once a week. And there is no religious exception for this. And I only mention this because there are members of the Supreme Court that think that matters. You know, this is one of our problems. And so what we're talking about is we're talking about 80 million employees in these larger businesses. And in healthcare, which you would think it was a given, there are 17 million. And the device by which we're requiring that there be a vaccination is OSHA. And the argument in part is, well, you know, OSHA, that's supposed to be protecting us in the workplace, and this is something that exists everywhere. Yes, but in the workplace it exists in a very special way, which is to say that you're in a contained environment, and you're there for name your number of hours, and distancing is a problem. There are lots of things going on. Now, there was a case, Jacobson, in 1905, in which somebody in Massachusetts didn't want to be vaccinated for smallpox. And the Supreme Court said, well, they could make that requirement. So what is the difference here? The difference is, and that's the question, will the Supreme Court make a difference between a federal arm for insisting on vaccination or a state or local government one? And Jacobson was a local ordinance. The Supreme Court has been pretty uniform about upholding these orders. So it's not a lost cause, but we have heard Gorsuch in earlier cases concerned about whether or not there's a religious exception. So let's turn to the second big story. The second one is about build bigger, better. Well, that's a fine slogan. And the real question is, in this drama, this bromance between Biden and Manchin, can there be any reconciliation? Stay tuned for the next episode. Well, what we're told is, and this is, I think, an important point, that Manchin, at the end of last week, signed a document saying that there were two components he could support, and one was environmental. And what's the significance of that? Well, what happened between Friday evening and Sunday morning on Fox News? The answer I suggest is not anything from the White House staff or from anybody else, but from his cronies, the people who bring him to the dance, the oil and gas lobby, where he, as a coal baron himself, has enormous income and potential that he's been able to take advantage of. So, but still, although we know that, we have Democrats insisting on having a vote that mathematically they cannot win. I don't see the advantage of that for several reasons, including that we may, as a result of it, find other Democrats who have reservations about BBB bill, the social stimulus bill, if you will, the $2.2 trillion bill. And I think for the Democrats, and I am a Democrat, a lifelong genetic Democrat, for the Democrats, it's a little bit like an incident years ago, which they were studying chimpanzees. Now, don't get ahead of me. There's no joke here. The chimpanzees would try to put their hand through an open knot in the wood to get at meat on the other side. Now, the problem with this was when they put their hand through, they would clench it and it was too big to pull out of the knot. So what would they do? Well, you might think they'd release it and pull their hand out and say, I can't get it. They would literally die trying to hold on to and pull that meat out. I feel that there are some Democrats, at least, who have that phenomenon compromising their good political judgment. And as a result, they're just not going to release that meat. They could taste it so certainly they'll go after it. And what would I do? Well, I think what happened in the White House with Manchin was they said, okay, here are 10 categories. I think I said this the other day. So pick the ones that you support, and let's see if we can broaden that list or make changes in some way that we can enlarge the list. And so out of 12, you agree to 3, 4, 5, who knows? It looks like he only agreed to 2, and one of them was the environment. And I think that was his third rail. And as I speak on Tuesday, there's supposed to be a conference call this evening. And the real question is, will the half of the bromance, that is Manchin, participate in the call? If I were in his position, I would. But here's the reason why he might not. If my supposition that his change of heart between the end of the week and the Saturday appearance on Fox was motivated, what was the intervening event? And I think it's the people who brought him to the dance. So those are our two big issues. It feels pretty good out here. And as you can see, we got some happy animals. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good evening. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.